What if the oldest streets could speak? What would they tell us? Of riots, fires, love, and loss frozen in time. In this video, we don't just show you photos, we invite you to walk through them. Because Illinois didn't begin with steel and speed, it began with stories, now uncovered again.
The river that burned. In April 1899, the unthinkable happened. The Chicago River caught fire. Oily sludge on the surface ignited, sending flames 50 feet high. The Kinzie Street Bridge and a nearby railroad bridge were engulfed. Firefighters battled the inferno while smoke rose like a warning. Chicago was growing fast, but not without cost. Michigan Avenue's Sacred Mile. A quiet moment on Michigan Avenue in 1899 captures Chicago's spiritual skyline. Church spires pierce the sky, lining the peaceful, tree-framed street. Horse-drawn carriages move slowly past towering stone sanctuaries. It's a portrait of reverence and ambition, a city balancing its booming industry with solemn spaces for the soul. Montgomery Ward fights for Chicago's lakefront. In 1898, industrialist Montgomery Ward launched a bold campaign to keep Chicago's lakefront free and open to the public. This photo shows the contested site where developers wanted to build an exposition hall. Ward's vision? A lakefront without walls, forever open, clear, and free. A battle for beauty and access. State Street, the beating heart of Chicago. In 1997, State Street pulsed with energy. Horse-drawn streetcars rumbled through the city's commercial hub, while pedestrians filled the sidewalks beneath ornate awnings and towering brick facades. Signs like "Fair" loomed overhead, hinting at the booming retail culture. This was Chicago becoming the Midwest's modern metropolis, fast, bold, and bustling.
The tugboat Binghamton passes the Adams Street swing bridge. Around 1895, the industrial heartbeat of Chicago echoed along the river. The tugboat Binghamton cut through the water, trailing black smoke between brick giants and steel bridges. Debris lined the waterfront, a sign of rapid expansion. This was Chicago in motion, a city building itself, one shipment and one bridge at a time. Chicago World's Columbian Exposition. In 1893, Chicago unveiled a dream, the World's Columbian Exposition, also known as the White City. Gleaming neoclassical buildings rose beside tranquil lagoons, welcoming visitors from around the globe. It wasn't just a fair, it was a declaration that out of fire and ashes, Chicago could imagine beauty and build it. Ferris wheel at the World's Columbian Exposition. Towering 264 feet above the fairgrounds, the first ever Ferris wheel was Chicago's bold answer to the Eiffel Tower. Built for the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, it wasn't just a ride, it was a statement. Every revolution carried dreams skyward, proving America's imagination had no ceiling. Inside the Hall of Wonders at the Columbian Exposition. Beneath cowering arches and a sea of flags, visitors in 1893 wandered the grand exhibit halls of the World's Columbian Exposition. It was a world within a world where nations, inventions, and dreams converged. For many Americans, this was their first glimpse of global wonder, all under one majestic roof.
Birth of the elevated loop in Chicago. On Valentine's Day, 1893, Chicago took a leap skyward. This photo captures the early construction of the iconic elevated loop downtown, a tangle of beams and ambition. It marked the beginning of a new chapter in urban transport, forever shaping the city's skyline and the rhythm of its streets below. Suffragists march in DeKalb. In a bold display of resolve, women marched proudly through DeKalb during a Decoration Day parade in 1892. Clad in long dresses and clutching flags, these suffragists were not merely commemorating the fallen, They were staking their claim in history, one step at a time, on the road to the vote. Art Institute of Chicago begins to rise. On February 6, 1892, a $325,000 contract launched the construction of the now iconic Art Institute of Chicago. Backed by ambitious plans and major fundraising, the project replaced the old Industrial Exposition Building, marking a cultural turning point for the city's lakefront and for its artistic legacy. Calls to lower the lakefront rails. In early 1891, the Chicago Daily Tribune pressed for a bold civic change, lowering the Illinois Central Railroad tracks along the lakefront. Their vision? A clear, open view of Lake Michigan, free access for all, and a grand boulevard stretching from the heart of the city to the water's edge.
Chicago's first electric streetcar. In 1890, Chicago entered a new era of transportation with the introduction of its first electric streetcar. Sleek, quiet, and modern for its time, this innovation replaced horse-drawn trolleys and began reshaping daily life in the growing metropolis. It marked the beginning of a faster, cleaner urban commute. Steamship crash at Rush Street Bridge. On September 20, 1889, chaos erupted as the steamship E.P. Wilbur crashed into the closed Rush Street Bridge. Miscommunication between captain and engineer led to 5,000 tons of steel colliding with morning commuters. Horses panicked, workers scattered, and the bridge warped under impact. Another dramatic episode on the turbulent Chicago River. Chicago's Federal Building faces early trouble. Completed in 1880, Chicago's Federal Building was already showing serious flaws by 1886. Though grand in design, its immense weight strained the unstable ground beneath it. Cracks formed, floors sunk, and rats scurried through hollow upper walls. A proud neoclassical symbol was quickly becoming a cautionary tale of poor planning. Inside Chicago's tenements, squalor hidden in plain sight. On July 26, 1885, a Chicago Tribune reporter followed Health Inspector DeWolf through the city's worst tenements. Families crammed into 12-foot rooms, children languished on broken chairs, and despair hung in the air. Behind decaying walls, lives unfolded in silence, forgotten by progress, yet never far from its towering shadow. Towers of Grain, Chicago's hidden economic engine. In 1885, towering grain elevators redefined Chicago's role in the global economy. What began in 1851 with horse-powered lifts evolved into massive steam-driven warehouses by the riverfront. These buildings stored millions of bushels, quietly fueling the rise of the futures market and transforming the city into a grain empire. Rose Hill Station, where the city meets the tracks. Captured in 1885, this image shows passengers gathered at Rose Hill Station in Chicago, a quiet yet crucial hub in the city's expanding rail network. Men in coats and women in bonnets wait calmly under telegraph poles, symbols of a connected future. Life paused here between steam whistles and wooden platforms. Lakefront Park, a tramp's paradise. Photographed in 1883, this peaceful stretch of Lakefront Park in Chicago hides a deeper reality. Known then as a haven for the city's homeless, the park offered solitude, secrecy, and survival. Figures lay hidden in the shadows, some by choice, some by circumstance, wrapped in coats under the sky, dreaming of warmth and dignity. Randolph Street Market, Chicago. Captured in 1880, this bustling image of Randolph Street reveals a thriving marketplace where horse-drawn wagons overflow with produce and goods. Crowds of merchants and customers navigate the narrow space between stalls as buildings rise stoically in the background. It's a vivid portrait of Chicago's early commercial heartbeat, gritty, alive, and full of motion.
Chicago Academy of Fine Arts. This photograph from 1879 captures the austere grandeur of the Chicago Academy of Fine Arts, standing proudly along a nearly empty boulevard. Horse-drawn carriages and pedestrians pass the imposing stone building, which reflects the city's early cultural ambitions. Long before skyscrapers, this structure embodied Chicago's belief in beauty, education, and permanence. Michigan Avenue, beauty or champion mud puddle? This 1877 image captures Michigan Avenue at a time when beauty was in the eye of the beholder. Lined with elegant buildings and orderly trees, the scene suggests charm, yet critics of the day mocked it as a mud puddle with a bad top dressing. Horse-drawn carriages, walkers, and the wide path evoke the early struggle between civic pride and practical infrastructure. The battle for Chicago's lakefront. This 1872 view shows Michigan Avenue before the skyline took shape, when the city's dreams clashed with railroad power. With horse-drawn carriages rolling along and pedestrians strolling past rows of trees, the scene looks calm, but behind it, a heated political struggle brewed. Citizens opposed railroads, claiming prized lakefront land. This quiet image hides the fierce debates that shaped modern Chicago.
The Great Chicago Fire began. On the night of October 8, 1871, a small blaze in a barn on DeKoven Street turned into one of the most devastating urban fires in American history. Fueled by dry weather, wooden buildings, and strong winds, the flames spread uncontrollably across the city. In less than 48 hours, over 3 square miles of Chicago were reduced to ashes. Legend blames Mrs. O'Leary's cow for kicking over a lantern, but the real cause was a city unprepared for disaster. As church bells melted and entire blocks collapsed, thousands ran for their lives while firefighters battled hopelessly against the inferno. By the time the fire died out, more than 17,000 buildings were gone, 100,000 people were left homeless, and over 300 lives were lost. The heart of Chicago, its businesses, churches, homes, and even its courthouse was gone. But from the ashes rose something greater, a rebirth. Architects, investors, and laborers from across the country poured in to rebuild the city. Steel, stone, and vision replaced wood and chaos. The fire didn't just destroy, it transformed. Chicago would never be the same, and in many ways, it became stronger. The skyline we know today began in the ruins of 1871.
Playing with a monkey. In a quiet street of Bloomington, Illinois, a small monkey on a leash steals the spotlight. Children gather with cautious smiles while a woman gently leans in, curious. The scene feels both strange and endearing, an odd moment of joy, captured in the middle of post-Civil War America. Lincoln's funeral train leaves Chicago. Under a towering arch of mourning, Abraham Lincoln's body departs Chicago on the journey to Springfield. 15 young women in white and black stand silently as thousands gather in reverence. Drawn by black horses, the funeral car moves slowly, solemn, heavy, final. A nation grieves as one era comes to an end. Rush Street gets a new bridge. In the early days of Chicago's rapid growth, crossing the river was no easy task. On February 3, 1864, a new bridge on Rush Street was opened to pedestrians and teamsters, connecting the bustling north and south sides of the city. The previous bridge, built in 1857, had tragically collapsed under the weight of cattle, resulting in multiple fatalities. Rush Street Bridge collapsed under a herd of cattle. It was just after 5 p.m. when tragedy struck the Rush Street Bridge. 100 head of cattle were being herded across, led by drovers and a horse-drawn wagon, when a replacement bridge tender, reportedly untrained, swung the bridge open mid-crossing. In a horrifying moment, the north half of the bridge gave way, snapping and crashing into the icy river.
Camp Douglas turns into a prison of misery. In early 1862, Camp Douglas in Chicago was emptied of Union troops and repurposed into a prison camp for thousands of Confederate soldiers. By the end of the war, over 26,000 men had passed through its gates. Many never left. Originally a training ground, the camp quickly earned a grim reputation. Overcrowding, poor sanitation, and harsh weather turned it into a death trap. Sherman House, Chicago's hotel of power. Before skyscrapers ruled the skyline, the Sherman House was the epicenter of elegance and influence in Chicago. Built in 1858, it stood proudly at the corner of Clark and Randolph, welcoming politicians, performers, and power brokers from all corners of the country. Flames on South Water Street. At 4 a.m. on October 19, 1857, fire erupted from a brick store and swept through one of Chicago's wealthiest business districts. Within hours, the blaze had devoured 6 entire blocks, turning marble storefronts and priceless stock into smoke and ash. 23 souls perished, including firemen and those trapped by fate or profession.
Lager beer and blood on Clark Street. On a chilly April morning in 1855, German and Irish workers rose not just for rest, but for protest. A new mayor had tripled liquor license fees and banned Sunday tavern hours, igniting fury across Chicago's immigrant communities. When arrests followed, the people marched. Behind them, the rage of laborers, robbed of their only day of peace. The oldest photo ever taken of Chicago. Before skyscrapers pierced the sky and the Great Fire reshaped everything, this is what Chicago looked like. Captured in 1855, this image shows the Cook County Courthouse and City Hall, quiet, sturdy, unaware of its doomed fate in 1871. It's the city's earliest known photograph, and it feels like a whisper from another world. No cars, no noise, just a moment suspended in sepia before the storm of progress arrived. The first steam horse of Illinois. This was more than metal and steam, it was the beginning of movement. In 1852, the Galena and Chicago Union Railroad rolled out its pioneer locomotive, carving through the prairies with a promise of prosperity. It wasn't sleek or fast by modern standards, but to Illinoisans of the mid-19th century, it was a roaring symbol of progress.
History never really disappears. It just waits, buried in dust, in silence, in photographs like these. These images aren't just glimpses of a forgotten past. They are mirrors held up to our present. And as you leave this journey through time, remember, what we preserve today becomes the memory someone finds tomorrow.